We're back.
We're back and more tired than ever.
I'm okay. My energy levels are decent today.
I'm fine too, but it's become manageable.
Yeah, you're adjusting.
Yeah.
To being a milk farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've kind of a classic app today. Just gonna run through
a lot of stuff on the docket.
Lots of stuff on the docket. Billie Eilish had a new Vogue cover.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
It was British Vogue. British Vogue.
Vogue UK.
I always think Billie Eilish is British because she has that kind of also like milkmaid, Adele look to her.
She does seem British.
And the name Eilish.
Eilish.
Yeah.
Billie Irish.
Yeah. She seems like a real slag. Just kidding.
She's a very random celebrity to me.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why there's enthusiasm around her.
Do you think that she's like a psyop?
Like an industry plant?
Yeah. Like all of those Albanian girls.
Ooh, I don't even talk about that. I'm scared of even.
We're going to get whacked.
I mean, at least Dua Lipa's truly so hot.
She's really hot and I really like her voice and I actually really like her music. Dua Lipa's like one of the few pop stars that gives me hope, even though she's totally also like made in a vat.
She's not an industry plant. She's just like a Albanian mob money laundering
mule,
cipher or something. It's I don't think Billie Eilish is a plant. I think she's just I don't know. She really is sort of how mediocre the music industry is. It's like a testament to Billie Eilish's popularity or something.
Yeah. What did you think of the shoot?
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, she clearly was like taking off her, as you say, Cedric the Entertainer.
The barbecue duds.
The cookout outfits that she usually wears.
Yeah.
And doing she did like a platinum blonde corset, a couple corset looks.
Yeah.
But there's, I don't know.
It reminds me of that aesthetic turn.
I'm trying not to get into body shaming territory.
Yeah, we're not doing that on this show anymore.
We don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
She's a beautiful girl.
Yeah.
I like her big rib cage.
Her like wide shoulders and large rib cage.
It's cool.
She took this whole photo shoot first. So I don't have like the stamina or wherewithal to like or not like this photo shoot. Mm-hmm. It's fine, but like all contemporary photo shoots, it's like overdone and overdetermined. Like it's just too retouched, you know?
Yeah.
Like it looks overly glossy, and she reminds me of that like aesthetic turn Kim K took in 2018, where she was wearing like weird like alligator skins and like latex bodycon outfits.
Yeah. There was one photo of her crouching and she was wearing like latex thigh highs. That I thought looked cool. Yeah. But the whole vibe was very overdone, but also just like conceptually just underdone.
Yeah. Slapped together by a team of like underpaid, sinister homosexuals.
Exactly. And the over-reliance on like the corsetting and the latex is very like
makes her suspicious.
Makes her feel just very encased.
Yeah. Like a sausage.
Like a sausage. Rather than what I think she was trying to go for was like she wanted to like kind of reveal her body and her sexuality by taking off the big T, the big tall T. Yeah. But instead she feels like even more somehow obscured and protected and encased by all of this like accoutrement.
Good point.
You know?
Yeah. Someone should write an essay about that on Substack.
Yeah.
Or Medium even. She he took off the Fat Albert discount store duds and like is wearing, she looks very Fassbender light. Like there's something kind of matronly, but at the same time like S&M about the look. But yeah, it's like it's overdone yet underdeveloped, as you say, because like everybody's like trafficking in references of references. Just none of these new photo shoots measure up to anything that was happening in the 80s or 90s,
right?
In terms of like imagery. I actually like my I guess extremely cold take on this is that a lot of people are like, well, Anna and Dasha are body shamers and fat phobics because they're anorexics who hate themselves and are blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And this actually couldn't be farther from the truth. Like it's a fundamentally it's like a willful and convenient and self-flattering misunderstanding of my position. I think that at any given time there's like a beauty standard, like that's the norm or like the convention, and you know there's a hierarchy within that, and it is more or less objective. Like the subjectivity occurs at the poles, you know, like at the extremities, but like the most magnetic and memorable people at any given time are the people who can successfully buck that beauty standard in one kind of or two or three directions while more or less maintaining it, if that makes sense.
Go on.
Like, you know, like you're extremely conventionally hot, but you happen to be like plus size.
Right.
You know,
yeah,
it's like that woman Paloma Alcacer, right? The model. Is that her name?
I don't know.
She's like a Latinx, whatever model. And she's like extremely conventionally beautiful.
Yeah.
Like top 1% of beautiful women, but she's fat. And it's like, that's the novelty of the look. But she's still, you know, far outweighs, no pun intended, most, you know, women in the streets or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And, you know, it's like having like vitiligo or like a big nose or like some other weird thing that like sets you apart from the tribe. And like Billie Eilish, I think, is really beautiful and really sexy, but you know, most important of all,
you think Billie Eilish is sexy?
I do. I think she has sex appeal. She has like these kind of like dead and droopy eyes that are kind of come hither.
Okay.
I find her to be very attractive.
Yeah. I'm definitely not one to speak about being dead-eyed, but I find her the blankness a little like neither here nor there.
I think she's like unfulfilling as a pop star, and I could care less about her music or her stardom. I just don't care about celebrities or fame or anything. This is all like profoundly uninteresting to me, but like yeah, she has a certain sex appeal that probably I don't know if it's because of or in spite of her thick body.
She's not fat. I'll just say that. She's just big boned.
Yeah, she's like a large milkmaid, a beer wench.
She'll never be like, you know,
a waif,
and she doesn't need to be. She has her own thing going on. But her allure to me was more interesting, I guess, when she looks better casual, I think. Yeah.
If they really wanted to be edgy, they would just put that photo of her stepping out of that like studio or whatever, wearing the tank top and the Crocs
and the
Yeezy cargo
slides.
Shorts.
Yeah. Rather than this like mauve room. I mean, it would have been nice to get a little more production design. I know we're in a period of austerity, but the main thing is that it looks cheap. It looks like it was thrown together by some like Dime Square like amateur photographers and stylists. This doesn't look like very encased. She's not actually like showing any skin. Yeah. I mean, tits don't look particularly good. Yeah. Which is, you know, one of her more interesting features to me. Her big gigantic rack. Yeah. But I mean, that picture looks like it's like the picture of her in the black lingerie against a pink carpet. Yeah. That picture looks like it's sutured together from a bunch of other pictures, which it totally is, because that's how they do shoots. You know, they'll splice in an arm or a leg. Right. Or like an entire head or whatever. Which is cool, but it's very like nip tuck or whatever. Definitely.
And overall, I think the problem is like the Billie Eilish photo shoot suffers from the same problem as A Promising Young Woman, in that there's a bunch of fake controversy being generated around it to cover for the fact that it's a fundamentally uninteresting and unmemorable like blip on the radar of the content machine.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
I was talking to my hairstylist, was a homosexual yesterday, and we were talking about it, and he was like, I think he was a Billie fan, and he said, well, she's getting a lot of heat for it. And I was like, is she? It's that definitely feels completely manufactured.
Yeah, that she's allegedly getting a lot of heat for, quote, selling out. And it's like, well, she's literally a mega famous pop star that's the product of like a finishing school style machine.
Yeah,
she's already sold out.
Isn't she like 18 years old too? She's probably has been groomed for a career in pop since she was like a tween.
I think she's like 19.
Okay.
I think, like Zach Braff is probably going to end up dating her after he's washed his hands of Florence Pugh since he likes those thick ladies. Yeah, but I was, she has something, I will say, like beauty or kind of sexual charisma wise for me personally, but I don't know, it's not like strong enough to register in any like deep or memorable sense.
Yeah.
But she's not, she's not like
I'm interested in the evolution.
Yeah, well, I'm glad
she from here.
She dropped the I know I'm not one to talk, but I'm glad she dropped the kind of like two-tone like skunk hair that was like I hate, my pet peeve honestly is not curves. It's when people do that kind of like, when people have like blue hair or like hot pink hair, they do like colorful neon hair. It's very like immature and juvenile, but I'm also an old broad, and that's probably why
she's young. Yeah, that's my instinct with it. And it doesn't feel like a more authentic presentation of herself, if that's what. And the quote on the cover is, it's like, I think it was something like, it's about doing whatever makes you feel good. Just like a totally empty, weird platitude that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's like the Zizek, like, nothing. What's the line? I'm blanking. The kind of injunction to enjoy. Like it's mandatory to enjoy yourself and to you do you,
right,
hustle and grind. Like exactly. You can't like exist outside of that framework, which sucks. And it's just like, everything is personal choice now. There's no wrong answer if it comes down to like personal choice, which itself is like evil and corrosive.
Evil and just hollow.
Yeah.
I think 100% styled by a gay man.
Yeah, totally. who has kind of like who doesn't understand kind of like, who doesn't fully understand like straight female sexuality, because for gay men straight female sexuality is always a little kind of fetishized and clownish,
Exactly, yeah.
And this has a little bit of a kind of burlesque vibe. It's
which nail on the head.
Yeah, but that makes
trench coat, the open trench coat.
Yeah.
And I really hate those like very pointy like kitten toe heels.
Yeah.
That she's wearing in one of them, and in general. I think that they're like, they purely exist like for these kinds of photo shoots. Like they're like unwearable and ugly.
Yeah, nobody wears them in real life. Except, I think probably women in Tribeca or something when they go out to like restaurants with like a Balmain blazer like slung over their shoulders. But like women who copy editorials basically. But like the whole burlesque thing, the presentation also kind of made me sad in a way, because I think fat women have two options, and it's like either you're dressed like Cedric the Entertainer, or you're like a burlesque slam pig or milk maiden. It's like fetish, like you're wearing a corset
Right.
That's like tightened to the gills. That's the only thing that like the two modes that like plus size ladies have is like they could either self-abnegate and cover themselves up to like a worrying degree, or they have to mock and humiliate their own flesh in these like clownish ensembles.
Yeah, constrict themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to see her in some Ella Emhoff style knitwear, personally.
Just like a crochet, that Ella Emhoff outfit, like what was that?
The red overalls.
Yeah, I said she looked like a Dr. Seuss character, and I maintain that. She has that like...
One of the fuggliest pics I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Why? I think Ella Emhoff is a psyop to enrage people.
Yeah.
And to like stoke...
Because why? Why is she doing this?
Yeah, she's designed to like stoke divisiveness.
Right.
Like she's designed to produce a particularly acrimonious discourse.
Yeah.
And I think like you just have to like reject the premise.
She's stoking the flames of liberal extremism.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we should send her off to some Eastern territory and she can marry like a mujahideen or something.
Ella Emhoff.
Yeah.
That would be a better served purpose.
Yeah, it'd be like a good premise for a reality show. Anyway, there's no way in hell either of us are going to pick up this Billie Eilish interview / photo shoot for Vogue. I'm not going to look through that magazine.
At one point I suggested watching the documentary, but neither of us really had the enthusiasm for it.
Yeah, I can't.
She's just incredibly banal. I couldn't really.
Yeah. I don't even know what her music sounds like.
Same. Still don't.
I couldn't.
Every time she comes up, we still have yet to, I'm sure I've heard it probably on the radio, but.
Yeah. And I know what Lana's music sounds like, obviously, because I listen to it every day. I know what Dua Lipa's music sounds like because I listen to it like every other day. But this one, I couldn't even name a Billie Eilish song.
Let's see what that. This is her most popular one. Yeah,
that doesn't even sound like anything.
Never heard that.
I thought it was the one that was like that one is the Billie Eilish song, right?
Yeah, probably. God, she's got a lot of songs. I'll never listen to them.
Any one of them, yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, enough of that.
Should we move on to the other Billie?
Yeah.
Billie Gates.
Yeah.
Newly single.
Yeah. Ladies. He's on the market.
He's on the market.
What do you think that's all about?
Interesting. Definitely seems like his wife wants a divorce.
Okay.
I don't think he was an instigator of it. I don't think he would have, because he's getting quite a bit of bad press due to withholding like the intellectual property of the COVID vaccine from India and other third world countries, I guess.
Yeah.
In my preliminary research, I saw some people were mad about that. Apparently he invested in the like mRNA vaccination technology like before COVID happened. So he's not getting a lot of favorable PR right now. But so I bet his wife wanted a divorce. And they released a statement, I guess, a couple weeks ago that they were calling it quits. And the day that they announced, I read this in TMZ, so, you know, grain of salt, but he gave her like $2 billion.
Wait, that's it? That's
I think
low.
he'll give her more. I think there's still, TMZ claims that there's no prenup.
Yeah.
So they're really going to be dividing their assets. Here's the announcement. After a great deal of thought and a lot of work on our relationship, we have made the decision to end our marriage. Over the last 27 years, we have raised 3 incredible children and built a foundation that works all over the world to enable all people to lead healthy, productive lives, except for their like various eugenics overpopulation measures. We continue to share a belief in that mission and will continue to work together at the foundation, but we no longer believe we can grow as a couple in this next phase of our lives. We ask for space and privacy for our family as we begin to navigate this new life.
Something smells fishy for me. I think this is a big old acid liquidation scheme. I think that they're doing something with their money.
You think?
Yeah, they're not getting divorced because their marriage is over. But maybe I'm extremely stupid, and people on that level do care about kind of like not, you know, love or romance per se, but kind of they do cater to their own like sexual interests and desires. So I don't know, but I think they're probably just sharping some money away.
Right, because the uber wealthy tend to not get divorced.
Yeah.
They find like other kind of workarounds for those sorts of things.
Yeah. You know? When you're that rich, why not just like, and that old, by the way, why not just like maintain separate residences and go about your own life?
Well, that's why I think it's probably Melinda's doing, because divorces are incredibly inconvenient.
Yeah.
And for Bill, at least, I'm sure it would have been more convenient to stay married.
Yeah, and not rock the boat. But the fact that they are rocking the boat and announcing a divorce suggests that there's some other greater scheme there. Like, it's much easier to manufacture kind of a lightweight divorce scandal to cover for like some sort of like wealth transfer scheme. I'm like too stupid to understand the financial nitty gritty, but that's like my hunch there. He should just go trans. He already looks like an old lesbian. I think it'll be, you know,
he should join forces with Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah, Caitlyn and Melinda are like in the same ballpark of women.
Yeah, definitely. What did that girl say to you on Twitter about wasps? What did she call them? Founding stock?
Founding stock, yeah. I was like, this sounds like a kind of like neoliberal bone broth startup.
Founding stock.
Yeah. It's like sweet green for bone broth. I was like, what the fuck is founding? I don't even know what wasps are. I'm stupid. I'm so stupid. I think like Martha Stewart's a wasp and she's Polish. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, Martha Stewart is the pinnacle of waspiness, and she's not even a wasp.
She's not technically a wasp, but she presents.
Yeah.
She's appropriating wasp culture.
She embodies the aesthetic. Yeah.
She does. Yeah. She's Polish. Huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
She's a Slavic queen.
What's her real last name?
You don't even want to know. I have to look this up because I don't remember this, but I love Martha Stewart so much.
Me too. I really, really do.
She's great. I hope like Gwyneth Paltrow plays her in the biopic. Gwyneth Paltrow's half wasp because her dad's Jewish, right? But her mom's English. Yeah.
Yes.
She's very waspy.
She's a wasp, definitely. Yeah. Caroline Bessette Kennedy wasp.
She's a Catholic. I got schooled. People screamed at me, but yeah, these are the women I think are wasps. I think like Ann Coulter's a wasp and she's Irish Catholic. Like that's my idea. I don't actually know any wasps.
Yeah, to you it just means like blonde. Yeah,
but blonde in a specific kind of Anglophone way.
Right.
Definitely not like Slavic blonde.
No.
I was like, what the fuck is this bitch talking about? This is like not a discourse I engage with in particular. Her name is Kostra. Martha Kostra. Marta.
Right.
That's why she's so good with money. Polish women are very pragmatic and kind of busybodied.
Well, is she that good with money? She went to jail. Melinda Gates, also a Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah, we really have no room to speak.
Yeah,
This is where your race science breaks down.
Yeah. But I was flattered that this bitch on Twitter like confused me with Camille Paglia. I was like, that's her polemic, not mine. I don't really give a shit about wasps. Right. Okay. But anyway, yeah, I think like maybe like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos should just get married. They should enter into one of those platonic marriages,
which we'll get to. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe Mackenzie and Melinda can like les out together. But yeah, I think Gates's next move is really that he should transition, because he's really mastered manhood, and it's much easier to sterilize African children and withhold vaccine patents as the ambassador of a marginalized group. He could even run for office, not that he would want to do that.
Well, apparently he was, according to Podesta's emails back in 2016, he was one of the picks for it. I'm sure it would be smart for him to avoid a career in politics, but
yeah,
I don't know
if he wanted to like not draw attention to himself.
But the fact that they are still keeping their foundation and both continuing to work at it does make it seem like there's some asset shuffling, money laundering thing probably happening.
Yeah,
you're probably right.
Yeah, that's, I mean, again, I'm not an expert and I'm not qualified to speak on this, but I think I probably will be vindicated in the end. They also, like, these people seem kind of so bland and sexless that why not just also transition your marriage, like segue your marriage into like a platonic friendship, which is by the way that all marriages go anyway at the end of the day.
It's very much the norm.
Yeah. So there was this thing that you were talking about where like a clause of their marriage was that Bill was allowed to spend one weekend of a month with his girlfriend at their beach house.
His ex-girlfriend.
His ex-girlfriend.
Who he claimed to have a platonic relationship with. But this was reported like in the 90s, and it's unclear if that's something that they were still doing, but I think that was like a clause in their marriage as part of their contract that he would. I can't believe they didn't have a prenup.
Well, they got married very early, right? They've been married for 27 years.
Yeah.
That was back before prenups were like such a thing. And they weren't nearly as exorbitantly wealthy as they are now. So there was probably no basis for a prenup at that time. And there's this quote that's been circulating about how she had other boyfriends and he had Microsoft.
That she had what?
Other boyfriends and he had Microsoft. Like he was, I think this is from some interview where he was basically explaining the somewhat non-committal, like touch and go, fair weather, early like start of their relationship. Period. Yeah, the courtship period. I don't know. These people seem so bland and sexless. And as always with bland and sexless people, they like often turn out to be like really fiendishly horny, but they're often like sexual hobbyists because they're not, you know, casually attractive enough to just have casual sex. Yeah. From the outset.
And they're so wealthy that they're definitely perverted and have cultivated some kind of niche sex interest.
Yeah.
That they can only satiate through extremely expensive means or something.
Yeah.
I read on Dumas, that like gossip Instagram account where people submit anonymous like celebrity sightings and anecdotes, that he was spotted with
at Clandestino.
Yes, with Ella and no, with Kim Kardashian, who's also recently divorced.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be fruitful if it's true, but I think it's plausible that they would connect.
Yeah, those two people seem like they would be like mutually revolted by each other.
Definitely. He's got nothing to offer Kim.
Yeah, they're like different species of animal.
Right. Well, I read a piece in that NBC published about gray divorce is what they call it.
Yeah.
Divorce amongst like older adults over 50 and older, which has apparently doubled in the previous decade and has now plateaued at kind of a high. And apparently 1 in 4 people who get divorced in the US are over 50, which is kind of a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. That means a quarter.
Yeah, but of all the people getting divorced, which is like half of people.
Yeah.
If like 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Yeah.
But the divorce rate otherwise I think is like sort of subtly declining, but getting higher amongst older people.
So it's declining because people on the whole are poorer, but older people on the whole are richer. Is that the idea?
Younger people are getting married less, I think.
Okay. So there's no divorce possible if you never
get married. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to attribute sort of the gray divorce phenomenon to.
I think it's probably because like boomers are fairly rich comparatively.
Well, especially women, compared to previously, whereas I think many people stayed in marriages because they were like single breadwinner households, and so as boomer women become increasingly financially solvent, they have the means maybe to leave marriages.
I think they're boomer women are fairly rich, and boomers are all high on kind of the doctrine of individualism.
Exactly.
And like 60 is the new 30.
And people have kids later as well. And then a lot of people don't want to divorce while they're, typically I think where midlife kind of crises, divorces would happen with people with grown children. I think children are turning 18 later.
Yeah.
In the family dynamic. And so people are getting divorced later as well.
Yeah, probably. That makes sense. Yeah. I read also a statistic about how birth rates have fallen yet again. I think they're like at 1.6 per woman, which is like far below the 2.1 per woman needed for replenishment. But previously, I think in previous years, the birth rate among women 30 and over was rising because, again, a lot of women were waiting until they secured the bag and had a career to have children.
Yeah.
And now even that is falling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it. It seems like everyone I know is getting knocked up.
I literally sent out 4 baby gifts this month.
Wow.
Up from 0 this month last year.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's a COVID baby boom, but all of the sort of statistical evidence
points otherwise. I think there is a COVID baby boom among early and mid 30s white women with disposable income who live in the Dime Square area or have partied here before. I think that's probably it. But
in our immediate milieu, there's the numbers are adding up.
Yeah, we're really bucking the trend here. Single-handedly keeping the American population afloat.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's a weird sign. I don't know. All of this is like, again, like fairly depressing, but also not like, like feminists are always crying about the patriarchy. And it's like, well, divorce is a good sign that the patriarchy is long dead because it means that women have the income to leave their husbands.
Right.
So it's not like the bad sign that it's made out to be across the board.
Yeah, for sure. Well, marriages, I guess when we'll get into this more, are economic contracts fundamentally.
Yes.
And the sort of the myth of the love marriage is a very distinctly Western one that's relatively new.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not... I personally have really no opinion on marriage.
Do you think you'll tie the knot?
I don't know. If I can get skinny enough.
To me. I'm proposing to you, Anna, is what I'm trying to say. Do you think you could marry your
a million times,
friend, maybe, or your podcasting co-host? Yeah, I don't feel strongly about marriage.
I've said this before in an earlier episode, but I think like marriage makes sense when you're like very young and cute and you look great in a white dress. Like I'm a little bit too over the hill to get married. It would be a little also like burlesque and perverted for me
you to don a virgin white gown.
Yeah, to don a dress when I'm like pushing 40 years old. Like that's just like, it's not worthwhile. And it's like also you don't need a slip of paper to like I don't know. It's always like sat poorly with me, the kind of ceremonial aspects of marriage. It's something that I've never been interested in.
Yeah.
But probably because my mom was such a anti-marriage truther and like a weird spurg and tomboy.
Yeah, your mom is a bit of a tomboy. Well, yeah, my impression of the marriage industrial complex through watching reality television programming, basically, is that for a lot of middling people, for the vast majority of people, you know, a wedding is like a huge deal because it's like they're sort of indoctrinated into this belief that it's going to be like the most important and beautiful day of their life, where they're going to receive all of this like affirmation and attention and have this like celebration of their bond with their partner. But I think if you have other things going on, it's not that interesting.
No, I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, I think also a wedding as kind of like a symbolic proxy for a marriage makes sense when you have a big family.
Exactly.
And like,
I'm going to a wedding next weekend.
Oh yeah. I love weddings. I like going to them. I like eating the cake, and
I adore weddings.
Yeah. They're fun. I hope other people keep getting married.
Yeah.
I don't care if it ends in divorce because I have no dog in that fight. I don't care what, you know, their future is like, but as long as they keep having weddings and inviting me, then I'm cool with that.
Yeah. And my friend who's getting married does have a very big family, and it is very important to them. It's one of those like, there's like 4 different events. Yeah. You know, there's like a brunch, and then a dinner, and then a wedding, and then a reception, and then like another brunch. And it's like, it feels very like dress codey. It's exciting because it's not like when a lot of millennials get married, they kind of do this, they toe the line and do this faux casual kind of mason jar type of wedding. Yeah,
boring. Yeah. I can just go to a party.
And this is going to be very like, they're really putting on the Ritz for it. So that's...
Yeah, if you're going to do it, you should go big or go home, I think. Great opportunity for the whole family to take on a lot of debt that will never be recouped.
Definitely. If you can afford it, yeah. Yeah. But don't like bankrupt yourself doing some like backyard socially distanced wedding on Zoom because you still want to have this like important day.
Yeah, with stupid little paper lanterns and like a dog in a bow tie. Like variety games. I think like, yeah, again, like for me, it's always been about kind of like the marriage over the wedding, and like the you know, the same thing with like child rearing. It's more, you know, the baby over the birth. Like this
what do you mean?
Like, you know, like I think that for a lot of people misguidedly, it's about kind of documenting the pageantry surrounding their wedding or their birth or whatever, and it just and it's like the mundane reality is that when you get married or when you have a baby, that is another human being that you are stuck with forever, and you're negotiating kind of a relationship with. Right. That's like, you know, perpetually unfolding. Also, like, you know, like in my case, Eli's mom and my mom are very similar. They're independent, feminist, tomboy style women who don't really care either way. So if we were going to do it, we would do it for them, and there's no point, you know.
Yeah, I'm estranged from my extended family, and my parents aren't really invested.
They don't care. Yeah, I think you can have a broader commentary about how I think probably that it exists for a lot of people increasingly, and that's probably a disturbing trend, but you know, it is what it is.
Well, I guess this we can fold in nicely with the New York Times article from Best Friends to Platonic Spouses. Some people are
Anna and Dasha story.
Their friendships to the next level by saying I do to marriages without sex. which was an article written by Danielle Braff.
Oh, cool. Not 3 separate people. I love when the New York Times has like a really simple article that like was written by like 18 people.
But I think for a lot of people who don't have immigrant parents, the marriage industrial complex does endure. And this, I mean, the photo is of these 2 women who are not lesbians, getting married, and both wearing these like gaudy gowns.
They sure look like lesbians to me. They are. I think they are lesbians, or they're queer, just not for each other.
They're bisexual aromantics.
Okay.
Which is a new term I learned from reading this article.
Yeah, we learned a lot of new terms.
Mm-hmm. So this is a piece describing a rising trend amongst millennials entering into platonic, not just domestic partnerships, but like full on marriages. The article says there are no statistics about the number of platonic best friend marriages, and many people who are in them aren't open about their situation. But chat boards on Reddit and within smaller asexual and aromantic communities have popped up recently, suggesting this could be a larger portion of the marriage population than numbers portray. Asexual is defined as having little or no sexual attraction toward others. Aromantic means having no desire for a romantic relationship. Heteromonogamous is a sexual relationship between a man and a woman. That one I knew.
Yeah, I didn't know it was called heteromonogamous though.
No.
I didn't know it needed a term. Yeah, there are no statistics about this because this is literally a made-up, make-believe discourse that the New York Times invented to inflame the discourse yet again. Right. Like to inflame, like, and to like split it along kind of broadly, like partisan, like liberal versus conservative lines.
Right.
So that liberals are like forced to kind of like swallow their pride and be like, this is beautiful and a sign of progress, and then conservatives are like, these people are aberrant and perverts,
defiling the sanctity of the marriage union, which they sort of are.
Yeah, well, they're bloating the field to such a degree that it makes the term totally irrelevant.
Right.
It's like the Me Too of marriage, like calling everything. But it's like based on a tiny and statistically negligible sliver of the population. So that's why there's no statistics
within the asexual, aromantic community. But it is interesting that even people who self-identify as being aromantic would want to enter into marriages.
Yeah. I mean, we can call it for what it is. It's also kind of like a financial scheme. I don't know if I would call it a scheme exactly, but it isn't a means of people. It's like a means of getting certain financially favorable
tax breaks
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Do you know what how the tax breaks work for marriage?
No, because I'm a stupid bitch and haven't looked into this. But but I'm going to look into this, and I'm going to change my whole tone on weddings.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm getting married. Like save another $3,000 a year.
It must be more than that. There must be real financial incentive. Otherwise people wouldn't do it quite so much.
Yeah, I'll put it this way: if it makes financial sense to get married, I will do it.
Nice.
And I'll put on a fake little gay display of like white wedding frivolity, but
yeah,
I won't be happy doing it because I like to save every penny. I'll make all of you people drink out of mason jars.
But it's interesting but not surprising that these kinds of people would still be invested in the marriage as an institution and as like their big special day.
Yeah.
That they still want to have the pageantry.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Even though their marriage is fundamentally meaningless, because let's be honest, most marriages become platonic anyway.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like you are effectively entering into a platonic marriage with your best friend or frenemy, as it were, when you tie the knot, because that's where Like literally most
I'm gonna
of them.
marry my frenemy.
Yeah. No, seriously. And then you like slowly grow to resent each other and stop having sex. And like, you lose kind of your hormones plummet. So you're not really that horny anyway by the time you're 60 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, again, it's like peak. I haven't used this word for a long time, so I get a pass, but it's like kind of like peak neoliberal ideological conditioning where like something inevitable and fairly depressing is rebranded as something like novel and possibly positive,
Right. Empowering.
Yeah. And it's like platonic marriage has already existed throughout time. It just didn't require kind of a fancy tokenized label.
Well, it was very much the norm prior to romantic marriage.
Yeah.
Becoming the norm, which has happened very recently, actually.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's like, it's this classic millennial thing too, where again, you are, you resent having to conform to some sort of standard, but cannot bear the existential terror of not conforming to some sort of standard. So you want the bar lowered to suit you. I mean, that's what this is. There's a quote from the two ladies who are pictured in like the banner image or whatever, which by the way, like plus size photo shoot expectation is Billie Eilish, plus size photo shoot reality is these two.
With the blue haired reverend or whatever.
Yeah. So it says Miss Guercio and Miss Purificato want to get married because, bless you, because they want to be legally and socially recognized as a family. We wanted the world to know we are each other's go-to person in the world and be able to handle legal matters with the other appropriately. Miss Guercio said, "We are a couple, a unit, and partners for life." I mean, first of all, if you can, like, setting aside that it's very weird to refer to your like soulmate or best friend as your go-to person. It's like, this is my go-to person who will pull the plug when I'm on life support.
Your emergency contact.
Yeah, it's like your emergency contact. Yeah. She also talks about how their marriage is stable and long lasting and it has no conditions. And it's like, no, retard. The whole point of marriage is to impose mutually reciprocal conditions on one another. That's the definition of marriage.
That's, very true.
It's like a conditional agreement.
Completely. It's a contractual, completely conditional agreement.
I'm sorry I got angry. I didn't really get angry. I got animated. I'm not actually angry. But again, you reach this weird kind of classically millennial impasse where they repudiate any sort of commitment or reciprocity to one another, but yet need to saddle themselves with various fixed labels and identities.
And of course, there are completely conditions.
Yeah. They crave
and
an imposition of conditions.
Which they have. Like, they're best friends, quote, but they are legally married.
Yeah.
And their friendship is clearly beyond codependent. It said also in another part of the article that they sleep in the same bed but without sexual contact. But it's the way that like polyamorous people also convince themselves that that their relationships are like more functional and stable than monogamous relationships, but they're completely rife with problems and psychological power dynamics that are not sustainable.
Yeah, like stifled passive aggressive power grabs and whatever. Anyway,
right. If either of these women were to get a boyfriend, which seems unlikely, but it would definitely like cause a wedge between them and cause problems in their like platonic marriage.
Yeah.
It's not viable just because they say that there aren't expectations or conditions.
Yeah. And I think that they're actually like much more sophisticated than we give them credit for it, because they're running kind of an implicit statistical analysis in their minds and being like, okay, neither of us is going to get a boyfriend anytime soon. So this is statistically likely to work for at least some time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, this is a very Foucauldian point. Like liberalism invents these new identities to like sort and categorize people, right? And make them into like subjects of like control and surveillance. And it does so with very little effort by convincing people that kind of identity is synonymous with liberation and empowerment, when the truly liberating and empowering thing is to like not label yourself and to go undetected if possible.
Right.
What I'm surprised about, it's a really brilliant system, by the way, because it's very low cost and self-perpetuating. Like you can get people to do the work for you in a ye old panopticon or whatever. But I'm just surprised that people are so like suggestible and that they fall for it, and that they kind of take the wrong lesson from Foucault, which is that you should run headlong into this sort of identity trap instead of like flee for the hills. Like you should get away from it. I think like I read somebody recently disagreed with me about our analysis about on the Foucault like pedophilia episode, and he was like, well, Foucault is basically offering a warning against this sort of behavior, an admonishment, and people kind of like the academic discourse took the exact wrong lesson from it because they assumed he was endorsing it when he was actually rejecting it. I don't know enough about his writing and his kind of theories to
Right. The answer wasn't to become sort of increasingly intersectional.
Yeah.
If your goal is to liberate yourself from oppressive power structures.
Yeah, exactly. You're really just like entrenching yourself into those structures. I mean, this is really the difference between like the Russian and American mindset, which like Russians, by virtue of coming up in a low trust society, avoid identifying themselves, whereas Americans, by virtue of coming up in a fairly high trust society, are eager to identify themselves. And I'm not saying that, before everybody gets mad at me and is like, oh, Anna's doing that thing where she's like compensating for being an American by associating herself with like superior Russian values. I don't think it's like anything inherent or innate. I think that just like America is swiftly becoming similar to Russia. It's just at a lag. Like it'll take a while for us to realize that we now inhabit a fully low trust society too.
Right.
Like it takes a while to adjust and assimilate,
Yeah.
Because most of us who are like millennials grew up in the 90s or early 2000s when things were still a bit more kind of cohesive.
Or we'll look at just the way that a lot of people are reticent to go back to work post-pandemic because they've been receiving unemployment welfare benefits.
Yeah.
That their like shitty jobs don't compensate them enough for. Like it's advantageous for people not to go back to work, at least in places like this is based on anecdotal information I heard from my parents who told me that it's Uber is really like faltering in Las Vegas because there's no incentive for people to be like rideshare serfs because they're getting subsidized by government money, which is like why the Soviet model fell apart.
Yeah. I mean, good for them, honestly.
Of course. Yeah. I'm not, I don't think they should get back in those Ubers.
I saw a really depressing documentary recently about people who left Hasidism.
Oh yeah. What was it called?
I forgot. It's like on Netflix or HBO. It's like one of those streaming docs.
Talk about patriarchy though.
Yeah.
Hasidic women don't even get to learn to speak English.
Yeah. They don't even get to keep their own hair. Like, they have to shave their heads.
No.
Yeah.
I thought they had real hair under the wigs.
I think they have like maybe like very close crops. They have mullets. But no, they have to, I mean, at the very least they have to like, cover their hair.
Yeah.
But they profile kind of like a series of people. This one woman who has 7 kids by this guy who's abusive. She like left the fold and is being threatened by his like team of like watchdogs and agents. This young guy who left and has a fairly accepting family but has like a coke addiction. And there's one who was really interesting because he had kind of the personality of a male actor. Like he was very like hammy and outgoing, and also kind of an idiot savant, and he was talking about how he left this, religious sect essentially, he was trying to become like an actor and comedian in LA, but was doing living in a trailer and doing gigs, Uber driving. And I was like, how long is it going to take for him to confront the reality that the shitty past he left behind is not that much worse than the shitty present he's currently inhabiting as like an Uber driver. Right. It was like really sad.
Here's another couple that they profile in the piece. I think there's like 3 or 4. Kim Breitner, 40, never considered marrying a best friend, though she considers herself to be non-binary, aromantic, and bisexual. Miss Breitner, who lives in Dortmund, Germany, and is unemployed, tried OkCupid in 2013 and found her husband, who is aromantic and asexual. They quickly became platonic best friends and married in 2018. Sorry, I lost it. Sorry, that's the wrong one. Our daily life is that of best friends. We talk and laugh a lot, watch movies, but there's almost no physical element in it. Sometimes we hug or give massages to each other, and every night we have our goodnight kiss, but we have separate bedrooms. We are the most important people in each other's lives.
I mean, this sounds like a traditional heteronormative marriage to me.
Yeah, it sounds like most marriages I've heard about. Yeah. Devolving into just like marriages of platonic convenience and mutual care.
Yeah. I mean, my parents slept in separate beds. My grandparents slept in separate beds. That was the norm. Nobody slept in the same bed as their spouse.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how it was.
Your grandparents slept in separate beds?
Yeah.
How did they have the space in their
I think they had 2 little twin beds in a room. It was like that sort of thing. They slept in the same room.
Oh.
Yeah, but they had their own bed. I think like people didn't think that far ahead back in the day, and they were like, we could just like double up and get a California king.
Right. They were like, don't touch me. I'm sleeping over
like,
here.
Get away from me. No, but they really loved each other. I mean, my grandpa talked about my grandma every day, after she died. It wasn't like a platonic or loveless marriage by any means, but they had their own kind of like separate spaces.
Yeah.
For their bodies.
No,
in that Soviet flat. Yeah. I think the best relationship you can have is like when you're both exorbitantly wealthy and have like pet-a-terres in every like major city and get to like meet in the middle somewhere and have steamy hotel style sex.
Right.
And then like part ways.
And then retire back to your separate abodes.
Yeah. And it's like the most interesting people profiled were like the 2 ladies who were platonic and pansexual and had 2 children from previous relationships each.
Did you see the photo of them? The caption says, they have never been intimate with each other and they both have the freedom to date outside their marriage. This photo was taken using a Snapchat filter.
I know. I love that. That was so mean.
You're like, they don't look like this. Yeah. They're
actually a lot uglier in real life.
They're pansexual and they don't look like this.
But they kind of wanted to combine economic forces.
Because they each had kids.
Yeah. And to raise their children in a kind of like non-traditional family unit, which I understand because it really takes a village. But again, this is like a construct that's existed for millennia now that was actually traditional.
Yeah.
Because like the nuclear family too is also like an invention of the industrial age. It's a fairly recent formation.
Right.
That didn't exist before.
In previous formations, people lived more communally.
Yeah. And there was like generations of women mostly raising children within a village like setting.
Yeah.
That was kind of the norm for a long time. And all the children went to work at a very early age. Well, the ones who didn't die
right. That's
in infancy.
They had to have so many.
Yeah. But yeah, that I think we're going to be kind of seeing a lot more of that in a very limited sense because, again, there's just like less children in general. Like some of these cities have more pets than children. I think SF, I don't know about New York, but SF definitely has more dogs per capita than it does children.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
That is
fur
crazy.
Babies.
Well, there's a lot of gay guys in SF.
Yeah. That's true. And a lot of like tech nerds. But yeah, it's very like just interesting. I think the bigger issue is like people kind of slapping newfangled labels on fairly kind of like archaic formations, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Here's another one. Julep Tea, 24, a call center representative in San Antonio, Texas, said she feels this way about her future wife, Ashley Roberts, a direct support professional for the state of Texas. Miss Tea, who is demisexual, plans to marry Miss Roberts, who has been her friend since 6th grade. Demisexual is defined as only being sexually attracted with someone with whom you have an emotional bond. Again, term that didn't need to exist, that describes something fairly normal.
Yeah. That most people would probably...
Ms. Tea says she has social anxiety, much like the new CIA recruits.
Yeah, these people should just join the CIA. They're shoo-ins.
Which makes it difficult for her to know anyone intimately, and she isn't interested in romantic relationships. She said there's more to marriage beyond sex and romance. Her emotional needs are fulfilled, and she can't imagine life without Miss Roberts by her side. Meeting people is hard. Getting a bond and romantic feelings is hard. And more young people are starting to realize that there are other benefits to marriage other than romantic love. I mean, isn't the point to marry your best friend? Miss Tea said. So why can't it be your literal best friend? I guess more power to you.
Yeah, but the other sad thing is that it sounds like everybody in this article, much like the new CIA recruit, has generalized anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this all sounds like a giant cope.
Well, it's really sad. Yeah, it's sad because a lot of the people that they interviewed for this article seem like they would, even if they can't admit it to themselves, prefer to have a romantic, loving partnership.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, it's the same principle as being obese your whole life. You don't know what being in shape feels like.
Right.
So any kind of reaction that you would develop to that is going to necessarily be defensive.
Right. Right.
But like,
in
these
lieu of
have
options, you start to identify as aromantic.
Yeah, exactly. And like,
or body positive.
Yeah. And again, this is another one of those things. It's like billed as a sign of progress, but is actually a sign of precarity, and not just economic precarity, but spiritual precarity, spiritual obesity in addition to physical obesity. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like very sad, like this kind of relitigation, and it sucks that we have to actually like interface with such articles and like debate them.
Thank you to the New York Times. Yeah.
They're really getting desperate after Trump bailed on the nation.
Well, my question is, with these sort of arrangements becoming more popular, which again, we're not sure if that's actually true or if they're describing something niche that they saw on Reddit, which it seems like they are, with green card marriages, and all of the cares that are sort of taken to ensure that people are not getting married to each other for immigration reasons, you know? How is this any different and thus not criminal, you know?
Yeah.
Like, why can't you say, like, yeah, I married my best friend. He gave me $10,000 because he wanted to be an American citizen.
Yeah,
I just really wanted to do that for him. No, we live separately and aren't in a romantic relationship, but he is my husband.
Yeah, I married my best friend Bogdan.
Yeah. Yeah, I identify as an aromantic demisexual.
Yeah.
Who married like a Turkish guy so that he could immigrate to this country.
Yeah, I think he's from Romania or like Albania.
How is that? Wouldn't increasing sort of the categories of what counts as like a legitimate marriage then make green card marriages also
legitimate and viable? This is totally marriages? A giant Biden-Harris scheme to do open borders.
I mean, no one in the article is in a green card marriage, but that's what I thought of, you know? Yeah. Because green card marriages are also platonic.
Yeah. And typically they are between two people who have a much greater respect for each other than people who choose voluntary willful marriage, because they actually do need each other.
Yeah.
Like they're like desperately clinging to each other.
But they live separately and are polyamorous.
Yeah. You scratch my back, I scratch yours type arrangement. You scratch my back. Somebody should make like an Albanian pop song about that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, no, this is a good point. I have no way of answering that question. But yeah, this raises, you know, how do we kind of, that's the thing. It's like, how do you protect the category of marriage, and is it worth protecting at this point?
My hunch is, no.
Like the whole thing kind of is now fully meaningless if this is allowed to happen.
But the pains people take and like the sort of the interviews that are conducted to ensure that marriages are legitimate, I don't think anyone interviewed in this article would meet those criteria.
Yeah, and that's another question. Like, did they have to fake a romantic marriage?
It seems like no.
To get married,
like that they would find that to be.
This was just allowed. Are they
that would be categorically oppressive to them as a romantic.
Yeah, but you know, for the authorities, I guess there's no precedent for this sort of thing, so nobody's checking, and they probably just assume that you're like lesbians or whatever.
Yeah,
a normal couple, you know.
We should get a lawyer on to.
Yeah,
really
we should
unpack.
Just like hire a lawyer to
do the podcast for us.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, listen, if there's some favorable financial arrangement, again, I'm all for it. If we get married, we'll definitely be the thinnest people in a platonic marriage.
Me and you?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, we have a partnership.
We're in a corporate marriage.
We're in a corporate marriage, which is kind of seems like a lot of marriages.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
We have a vested interest in, we have a joint bank account.
Yeah, mutual enterprise. Yeah. I'm going to get into sterilization for low income people.
Should we talk about the new CIA recruitment video? This
woman also, to be fair, seems like she's in a platonic marriage.
In the CIA video?
Yeah, the CIA lady.
Yeah, definitely. But at least she doesn't suffer from imposter syndrome anymore.
Yeah, it's really funny because she should really, she should feel at home at the CIA, because it's literally an entire agency of imposters. Like, they're all spies. Like, they're all fake.
You should. That should actually be criteria for joining the CIA.
They're like, do you have imposter syndrome? And you start sweating because if you say yes, you might not get the job. But it turns out, and then like confetti rains from the sky, and they're like, you nailed it.
Put on this wig and get out there.
Yeah. They're like, what are your strengths and your weaknesses? It's been a while since I've, done a job interview. Yeah. But it's funny because it's interesting because imposter syndrome is such like a big thing these days. Mm-hmm. Like, and the lesson that you're supposed to glean from it is that actually you are valid and deserving, and you should just accept your achievements and celebrate your accolades.
As they say in this video that, she freed herself from
imposter syndrome.
Patriarchal constructs or something.
Yeah, but my thing is, I think imposter syndrome is more real than fibro and Lyme's and whatever autoimmune disorders we're having up in here, because you should suffer from imposter syndrome.
More people should. I don't have that shit.
Yeah, well, you've earned it. I don't have imposter syndrome because like I'm literally like a podcaster. It's not, I'm not like trying to work for the CIA or like the government.
But also she's not a spy. She's probably some like paper pushing bureaucrat. So she's got no reason to feel imposter syndrome. Anyway, she's exactly where she needs to be.
Totally. But it's like you should feel like an imposter because you are a fraud and a liar and a victim of the myth of meritocracy. Like we should all to some extent feel like imposters on some level. Like, everyone's a spook these days. So you get this video which feels like a parody of like a woke CIA rebrand is actually real and features a 36-year-old Latinx
self-described cisgendered woman who is diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. But then she goes on to say that her career at the CIA is not just a box checking exercise, that she earned her way to her prominent position at the Central Intelligence Agency, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well, and then a million conservatives were like, but it is a box checking exercise. And granted, if I had seen this video in 2016, I probably would have reacted that way too. Maybe most people would have, but I think that if you start to view these things as conceptual art,
yeah, it definitely,
as I've said before,
feels that way.
I think that it's much more kind of fun and liberating to see things that way, because then you actually, like, unironically, you look at these things and you're like, this is actually great art. It's basically institutional critique, but better, because institutional critique was like never that good to begin with.
Yeah.
But that's the only way to view it.
Totally, yeah.
Like with a grain of salt and, a sense of humor.
I wasn't, up in arms about it. It seems sort of par for the course.
Well, just because it's so ridiculous and absurd and mocking, you can't even get mad at it.
But it also sort of falls in line with the larger narrative of, white supremacy being the new grave domestic terrorist threat via the insurrection and stuff. And so the CIA utilizing all of this like woke intersectional rhetoric makes sense for their larger project of like cracking down on white supremacy.
Right. Yeah. Pretending that, entrenching themselves and pretending that this is like the thing that they're fighting.
Right.
When it's actually like a giant boondoggle exercise in the end. And a lot of people, of course, were on social media saying that this is the CIA co-opting the language of like radical activism. And just as many people on the other side were like, well, firing back, being like, well, it's not co-opting because this language is like trickling down. It's from the top down.
Right.
And I tend to agree with the latter explanation. Like you are ideologically conditioned to absorb it from the top down. All of a sudden over the last few years, we've all began using these like weird, bland, colorless words like intersectional and equity and people of color. Like these are, they're like Orwellian terms.
Always have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they've been handed down to us from, academia and theory and that sort of thing. They didn't arise organically with ordinary people.
Right. Grassroots.
Yeah. Equity in particular grinds my gears because it sounds, like a speculative financial term, which it is in a kind of a metaphorical sense. And I think actually Tucker made this point. I watched the Tucker monologue on this. He said, the question is, does anyone with an IQ over 80 actually believe a word of this? Does anyone in power really think something called white supremacy is the single greatest threat America faces? Of course not. No one thinks that. Susan Rice knows it isn't true. So does Barack Obama. So do all of the other architects of this particular lie. They made it up in the first place. So of course they know how false it really is. They may be liars, but they're not delusional. But the better and bigger question for me is like, who are they trying to fool? Because I don't think they're really trying to fool anyone, because they also know that your average person either doesn't care or doesn't buy it.
Well, who is the recruitment video really for? Like, who is invested in this kind of intersectional language, who also wants to be a CIA operative?
Yeah.
I mean, in that way, I read an article in Bloomberg called "A Woke CIA Will Make America Safer" by Tyler Cowen, who's some professor of something.
Oh, he's an economist. Yeah.
Okay. Did you read that article?
No, I'm familiar with this guy, but I didn't read the article. Yeah.
Yeah, his point was sort of that the CIA is that they basically have dwindling employment. They actually do need to be recruiting people.
Okay, so this is like a giant jobs program, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a quote from him. If the CIA is to remain a viable organization, it has to look for new sources of talent and send out many and new different kinds of bat signals. Simply putting the idea of working for the CIA into people's heads, in this case through a viral video, is a very effective marketing strategy, even for viewers who do not like the video. A further reality is that most CIA jobs are bureaucratic desk jobs involving research into countries, regions, and groups, and possibly requiring linguistic experience. Non-white women will very often have a comparative expertise in those areas. It's not necessary for every CIA employee to be able to perform the kind of stunts you see in the movie Moonraker. And then on to how, like, whether or not the wokeness is objectivable, he kind of makes a good point in that it is really sort of just diluting wokeness, which is really here to stay. Mm-hmm. And by co-opting it, just sort of disseminating it into the larger cultural frameworks and depleting it of its like radical power, which it never really had.
Yeah, it's always been kind of marching in lockstep with power.
Yeah. And in that way, it's sort of fitting and appropriate that the CIA would be utilizing a woke rebrand marketing outreach.
Yeah, he claims that because the vast majority of CIA jobs are desk jobs that are like research oriented, that non-white people are better at performing them.
Well,
because they have a greater kind of knowledge base of their respective cultures. Is that
multilingual?
They're multilingual, yeah.
I suppose.
I mean, that's not entirely true.
So that they can undermine governments in South America because they speak Spanish.
I mean, I don't know. That's not entirely true. I think the most kind of resounding characteristic of this like millennial generation of people who are either kind of like second gen or first gen immigrants in the United States is how divorced from the nuance of history and like ethnicity and language these people are, even if they do like kind of ostensibly like speak Spanish or Arabic.
Right, but the CIA recruits college educated people.
Base, yeah, but none of these people have an acumen for a kind of cultural difference. They don't understand it. They only understand diversity, which is like the opposite of difference. They don't understand concepts like kind of like loyalty or tribalism. They don't understand like differences in cultural values. I mean, it's really striking. Even like, you know, when I talk about kind of like the minutia of ethnicity and phenotypes, people kind of uniformly get like really touchy about it. And they're like, she's whipping out the calipers and doing race signs. And it's like, no, I just have like an intuitive backlog that I've inherited from my family that people of my generation, earlier generations in Russia, if they came from a certain like middle class, all had, you know, like.
Yeah. And I think high level CIA operatives probably still do.
They must,
do have a more cosmopolitan framework. But this all really reminds me of what Adam Curtis said about the mythology of spy culture and the intelligence agencies ultimately being actually in reality pretty impotent and non-effective, even though they might have they might be serving like sinister ideologies or doing various nefarious global deeds.
Yeah,
that they actually are not very successful.
Yeah, they're basically kind of like staffed with incompetence and mediocrities at the end of the day.
Well, here's a quote from Daddy Glenn Greenwald.
Who, by the way, should just enter into platonic triple marriage with us. Why not?
I would love to. He, responding to something Li Fang said, wokeness ultimately is neither really an ideology nor even a politics. At its worst, it's about petty cultural control, but mostly it's just a personal branding image by those otherwise at a loss for identity, purpose, and self-esteem. That's why power centers love it so much. The people most empowered by wokeness are corporate managers and HR departments, tech and state censors, institutions of corporatism and militarism, and brand managers who have an easy and effective way to market the world's worst products under a prettifying
a pedophiling
prettifying facade. And that basically sums it up.
If you can also like empower these people with the false knowledge that they've like bested their imposter syndrome and are the products of like intersectional excellence.
Their generalized anxiety disorder.
They make more docile slaves.
Well, I also think high level, high functioning, effective CAA operatives who probably don't even exist probably don't have generalized anxiety disorder.
Well, they have no interior monologue. They're like they're not neurotics.
They're
like
ops executing incredibly sophisticated covert missions, honeypotting, spy tactics.
Like you think of like
they're not like nervous at a party.
Like socially anxious spies. That's actually a really funny concept.
Neurotic assassin.
It's like he just like can't.
Sorry, I was diagnosed with social anxiety actually, so it's really hard for me to meet people, so I don't think I'm going to be able to go on this covert ops mission.
He like drops the gun and the silencer comes clanging off. It's like, you think of like spies and you think of like Daniel Craig or like Matt Damon. As like Bond and Bourne, but it's really some kind of like woman with like a cheap scrunchie and back fat hunched over a computer, like some woman who looks like Janice Soprano, like wearing stamped down flats, and a
James
Morona
Bond
cardigan.
Don't be having no generalized anxiety.
Like I was kind of like, when I saw this video, I was like, this is a bad idea. Like I don't care if they hire like intersectional POCs who are like non-binary, but it's probably
certainly they have, like when they were fighting the the war on terror, they were hiring Arabic speakers. I think the CIA has always been a multicultural agency.
Totally, by definition. If it was all like white guys,
if it was a homogenous monoculture.
I mean, American intelligence, like famously, has botched certain, initiative, like their intelligence initiatives throughout history. These are like people who like have a hard time distinguishing between like Sunni and Shia, but it's true that they've been like a multicultural operation. And again, this is, I think that the kind of purpose of wokeness is, again, like branding existing implicit things as explicitly as possible. That's like the basic operation. For people who are like too neurotic and anxious to exist without those labels, because they need like a guidebook for life.
They need something.
The other thing is that like I think you're right in terms of like being that like white supremacy is the great kind of threat and challenge ahead.
That's what's going to be used to justify increasingly censorious measures.
I mean the CIA
and surveillance
may as well just also pivot from being a foreign intelligence agency to a domestic intelligence agency.
I think that's what they're doing.
In which case you need
and I mean that pivot happened with the Patriot Act.
But exactly. And now more than ever, in which case you need a workforce of like anxious, neurotic, and ideologically disloyal people because your main goal in your job description is literally narking on others. It's like, back in the day,
being an instrument of imperialism.
Yeah, but like,
which is not language that you'll hear in the CIA recruitment videos.
Yeah, except you're focusing your energies inward, not outward, anymore. It's like after 9/11, intelligence agencies were entrapping retarded local youths into admitting that they were part of global terrorist plots, and now they're going to be going around exposing ordinary citizens as white supremacists because they like didn't want to,
rounding up like autistic 4chan Nazis and shit posters,
and like anti-vaxxers and whatever. So I think this is like all part of this all lines up. I guess there's something incoherent, as Greenwald and Tracy and others have argued, about the CIA's woke branding, because I think the main thing that you have to remember is that power has no ideology.
Yeah. Very well said.
Its only ideology really is to benefit itself and to therefore adapt other ideologies.
Right.
A la carte, basically. I look forward to being interrogated by the 36-year-old millennial cisgender Latina.
I know a girl who did a Slavic studies graduate program who was recruited for the CIA. Didn't join, but was they were definitely circling her.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm offended that I was never really on their radar, I guess, 'cause I think I'd be a decent spy.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm very intuitive. Borderline psychic.
Yeah, totally.
That could definitely come in handy.
Yeah. Do you have some linguistic skills?
Well, I speak Russian, kind of. I speak Russian at a 5th grade level. I'm low level fluent.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. How do you say white supremacist in Russian? I don't even know.
They don't have a word for it. Белая влажность.
I don't know.
See you in hell.
Yeah. See you in hell.